Hello and welcome, guys. This is Epi coming at you with a new episode of Epichat. It's been a long time since I've done one of these things, but I did find some time and also a person of interest that has accepted my offer and has taken the time to talk to me. And so I figured right about now would be a great time to kind of revive the whole thing and give you guys some in-depth interviews with players in the Dota 2 scene about current events and things that might interest you a lot. So, without further ado, right now I have on Skype call with me Brian FLUFFNSTUFF Lee. You guys definitely know him if you're familiar with Dota 2. So, Brian, hello. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, hi. What's up?
Hi, welcome. I gotta admit, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but are you familiar with the format? Have you checked out any of the Epichats before?
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of them. I really like them. I think it's a really good idea.
Great, thanks a lot. Well, I feel like ever since like when I started getting into Dota 2, one big thing that I liked a lot was the whole thing about team chemistry and the psychological aspect of the game, and how players in an age where they're still developing and stuff, especially their personalities, how this whole cocktail of potential conflicts evolves over time. And I feel honestly like you've been one of the guys that I've been very interested in interviewing about this type of stuff because I feel like you have a lot to say about these things. So I got to pace myself. I can't get into it just yet because I think we should start at the very beginning. And I was debating with myself if I should start with the, like 2011 or with you as a person, and I figured we will start with you as a person. Could you perhaps just quickly for the viewers just give us some of the raw data, like what's your age, what are your parents doing, and how did you get into Dota? And if there's any questions, I'll just like interrupt you and ask you something.
All right. Well, I'm 21 right now, and I was born in California. Both my parents are uh, doctors, and I got into Dota because my friends in middle school showed me Warcraft 3, and I got instantly hooked, and I've been playing since I was like 11 or 12 years old.
And you just mentioned your parents are doctors. Am I correct that they are both psychologists? Or
My dad's a psychiatrist. My mom has a degree in psychology, but she just helps my dad out a little bit and does
ah,
her own thing.
okay. And then it all kind of started for you middle school with Dota.
Yeah.
Um, I how like one thing I can imagine being interesting is having a parent that is active and practicing psychiatrist, um, and also being in an environment where there's a lot of conflicts between people, and not just like negative stuff, but a lot of communication, things like that. And communication is important. Do you feel like your parents or your upbringing has given you a skill set that is suitable for that kind of situation?
In a way, yes and no. Um, no, because during my early childhood, I didn't really see my parents too much because they worked a lot. Like my dad would leave in the morning, and he would come back like at midnight because he had a really long commute and a lot of work to do.
Hmm.
So as far as that goes, like I never saw my parents that much, and like contrary to what people might think, like they never actually practiced anything on me. Like we didn't really talk about anything that has to do with psychology or anything like that. And mainly it's because growing up I really admired my dad, so I always was interested in psychology on my own.
Hmm.
So because of that, I got into it. But between my parents and myself, like I don't think that the upbringing really affected that part of my life. But yeah,
Okay, but I guess what you're saying is that just the way the environment was in with your dad, and how highly you thought of him, that it was kind of natural for you to kind of be uh, leaning toward that kind of approach to life or conflict, trying to see things in a little bit more um, well, what to say, almost like a scientific way.
uh,
Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but
maybe yeah.
let's actually go back to the. I think it must be right. it must have been like 3 years ago, a little bit more than 3 years ago, the end of 2011 when you guys hit the scene. That was back with Team Fire,
Yeah.
and that was I remember watching. Well, I think it was still the defense. That was when online tournaments were just starting and Europe was going up against the States a lot, and then you guys hit the scene. Um, what 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 kind of people were on the team with you right there, and what was kind of the dynamic with Team Fire? Where did the motivation come from? How often did you practice? And what are like the things that thinking back from right now, um, really stick out from that team and that experience with Fire?
Okay. The team, my team roster was Jo, TC, Mike, and Hannah Montana,
Hmm.
and it basically started out as me and Hannah. We've been friends for a long time, playing Dota, and we decided that we wanted to make a team in Dota 2. So I decided to like get a group of players I think I could trust a lot, and not really look for experienced players so much because I wanted to bring new blood into the scene. Even though I wasn't really a competitor back then, I did play the game for a very long time, so I consider myself as somebody who is right under the competitive level, and I just needed a way to get in.
Hmm.
So I looked for these people, and the biggest thing I remember about Team Fire was that there was a lot of support and trust, and um, everybody was pretty positive all the time, and we are always looking to improve. The mentality back then was our goal is international. If we lose here and there, it's okay. We're learning, and it was overall just a really positive environment. And some of the things that we did back then were like in the United States, it's pretty difficult to be a pro gamer because the you have to play on the European schedule. That's where the scene is. That's where the competition is.
Hmm.
There's no scene here, so back then I decided like we're waking up at 8 a.m. every day. We're playing until 2 p.m. or something. We're just gonna scrim every single day, and we basically played for free. We didn't have a sponsor. Um, we all sacrificed a lot, but we all did that knowing that we could actually make it to the international, and I think that was like the biggest driving force behind all of our motivation. And like I don't know, I think we pushed all the limits back then for the American scene.
Yeah, I remember that right around the time when you guys were being very successful with Team Fire was also around the time when Pod and Bottom hit the scene, and it's that's another American team that's done fairly well, and players from that squad are very well known nowadays. Um, let's talk playstyle just a sec with Team Fire. Was it? I mean, you said you considered yourself for skill-wise as well. You know, just below the competitive scene. You knew that essentially, if you had a good squad and you practiced and you put a lot of time and blood and tears into it, then you guys would be able to compete with the very top. Um,
Mhm.
w- was it how much of playing with Team Fire was actually like what was the distribution between learning strategies, for example, learning how to play together and learning to communicate with one another? Like I imagine it being a very like overall probably the most educating time for you, perhaps.
Yeah, it, both those things go hand in hand. I'm really big on communication. I study a lot of different competitive games, and I try to bring in all these different tools that people don't really think about. Like, for example, like professional WoW Arena players, right? World
Hmm.
of Warcraft. The way that they communicate is really, it seems really erratic, but it's really fluid if you've actually listened to it. The way that they speak is they repeat themselves over and over again, and they use good intonation, so they're loud and clear, and they don't just say one thing under their under their breath. They're definitely like communicating very well, and I tried to get everyone to bring that out of everybody, and we definitely achieved that, which is like one of our biggest strengths. I think on our team we had huge communication, and one of the problems that happened like towards international was uh, we were using we were using Mumble as our VoIP,
Hmm.
and Blizzard didn't allow it, so we had to use in-game. And because of that, because our players aren't naturally vocal players, and we kind of built up that skill together.
Hmm.
Our voices are kind of low for that environment. We weren't prepared for that, so we lost a lot of our biggest strength in that event, and that was a big problem. But over the year, yeah, we started as like really kind of introverted type of players. We don't talk too much, and then I would try to bring out of everybody like this voice, and we definitely achieved that.
Can you give an example, perhaps? Like, is it also like how does the communication game work? Was it just about speaking up and speaking clearly, or was there some other aspects involved?
It's about making your intentions clear and committing to one thing. Like everybody knew if I made a call, we're not half-assing it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And if somebody else is making a call, they would there would be a difference between making a call confidently and making a call passively. So I tried to tell people that if you raise your voice, then people are more likely to follow you into the fights or commit to your idea. But if we sense a bit of hesitation, then my job as the in-game leader is to read that, and if there's any hesitation from anybody, then I just say, let's not do it, let's not commit. And that was a really big thing. Jo Jo originally started as our carry, and he was like the loudest player, and
Mm.
TC started as our mid, and he was like the quietest player, besides Hannah. They were both kind of on the same level, and we realized halfway through that the mid hero needed to be making the plays and making calls. So we switched the roles, and after that, um, Jo was able to be really confident, and we got a lot of momentum from that. And it was that was one of the biggest changes for our team. I think that's something that applies to any team now. It's like distributing the roles properly is really important because some heroes need to speak less than others, and putting the players on where they're more suited. If they're more of a farming player, more of a ganking type player, it's really important to find that.
Yeah, I feel like when you talk about confidence in making calls, I don't know. I mean, I just play public games, but sometimes when I play with my friends, then there's a call and we say something like we do not want to fight there. We got to wait for a core item or something, and then like 5 seconds later there can be an enemy low HP hero, and then you just tunnel vision and you try to focus him, and then all of a sudden you lose one by one, and in the worst case you lose Reacts or something like that. So I feel like. As if I understood you correctly, you would like, or you have the position where you say you have damage control. You feel like this was in real time, you try to gauge whether or not that was a confident call, or if it's possible. And if you sense that there's not that much confidence within the team to follow that decision, then you just say stop, don't do it. Let's back out.
Yeah, it's a lot better to cut your losses at that point.
So that is one thing on the communication side. Was there anything in particular before you guys got picked up by Complexity Gaming that that sticks out to you in particular? Like anything about your guys' play style or within the team? Has there been any communication issues arising back then in regards to you bringing in new ideas like the communication thing, or was everybody just on one level and realizing and accepting the merits of your ideas?
I think back then I had a really much different philosophy than I do now about the game, and part of it was because I knew at the core of our team we weren't we weren't the best and most experienced players. So kind of what I did with the team is I made it very like strategy based rather than consistent, because I felt like if we wanted to beat the higher teams and we wanted to get noticed, that we needed to like do some creative things to get some advantage in our favor,
Hmm.
because our base skill was much lower than other teams, and I understood that. So as far as strategy went, a lot of the a lot of the people didn't really chip in. It was a lot of times it was I just kind of just sat around all day thinking of the weirdest combinations or kind of five-man lineups that I could get, or just core of heroes that I thought would be kind of imbalanced. And that's just what we went with. We went into the games. I would just kind of tell everybody what to do. It was basically like that whole year for Mike was like I said, just follow me, like do what I say, and I was kind of microing him around with my voice. I call it voice micro, but yeah, it was really stressful. I mean, I don't recommend that at all, and that's not really my philosophy these days. But back then, it was a complete dictatorship at every level.
And one thing I do wanna ask about some more in detail is like looking back at complexity and the time where you said you spent a lot of time thinking about strategies and just implementing those strats and having your team follow the strats that you have thought up. Can you talk a bit about that general? Was it were all different strats that you thought up? Written with the same ink? Was it all about aggression early game, or was it all something very different? Can you talk a bit about just that strategic aspect?
Yeah. I was getting kind of a robot feedback from Skype. You get that right now?
Oh, oh, sorry. No, I don't at
Oh,
all. We
okay.
will have to check. Did you understand my question or?
Yeah, I got your question.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, back then the style that I really favored was my the one thing that I was gonna stick to was push gank. That's my style. I don't want to take it late. I don't like taking it late. I want to be the aggressor. I want to get the objectives, and every strategy kind of revolved around the idea. So there were certain linchpins of my strategies, like we like to bring a lot of Chen into the game. We like to bring a lot of Tidehunter. So we saw the same type of base heroes almost every time in Darkseer. And the main thing about these heroes was that they're really good at fighting. They're really good at being aggressive, and they have a certain window where they're just terrors on the map. And that was my main idea. I liked having the Rasta pushing. I liked Leshrac, heroes like that. That was my main goal. I never really created strategies that were for protect one or sitting back. It was always going for the throat.
And that back then, I mean, now we gotta see the whole thing that you just talked about in perspective. I mean, the metagame is constantly changing. Back then, it was still a bit different. How was the overall strategy back then? Did you guys bring fresh wind into the scene with that push gank style and that big aggression? And did teams have issues uh, fighting against it, or was that the prevalent play style?
I think the scene has grown so much more from back then. Actually, when I look back at my TI replays, I looked back at TI2 replays recently, and I saw that we were against the bounty and we didn't have sentries or dust, and it was just a disaster. And like back then, a lot of teams made these really random mistakes, and so because the skill level was much lower as a team overall, teams like to do a lot of ganking, and they would usually have a single core. I don't think that I brought a fresh wind into the scene. A lot of my inspiration for in that time came from Dota 1 Chinese scene. I used to watch a lot of replays with
Hmm.
Chinese teams, and one of my main inspirations was Team DK, the the version where it had Long DD, and they were very successful team together, and they like to do a lot of push gank as well. The main strategy back then was DK, who would get pipe, and they would get Chen a lot of times, and I got a lot of inspiration from that. So I think what essentially I brought to the scene back then was structure in the environment in a scene where it was very chaotic, and because we had structure, I felt like we had the advantage because a lot of teams seemed to be doing a lot of random different things, and we always had a plan.
So you mean that also in regards to the movement on the minimap as five, that the movement of your team and your five heroes was always for something and it had a purpose, whereas the enemy team was perhaps two or three different purposes and then split up on five heroes, or?
I think back then a lot of the teams tried to outskill each other.
Hmm.
Besides a couple few like Navi, um, and like I countered a lot of the heroes basically. People liked to initiate, so I just got a lot of counter initiate, and the result of that is that when they come on you, you just destroy them. And a lot of teams start to figure it out later, but in the beginning, it was a lot of just counterpicking what they were doing and people not adapting because they underestimated us because we were new and they didn't think that they should pay attention to us until we had some results. So that was a big part of why we were like successful early on.
Hmm. And when you say something like back then people like to initiate, so you go ahead and counter initiate, would that then be something like the Titan that you just mentioned, or
Yeah.
just in case there's probably a lot of people listening right now, they're like, oh, that sounds very interesting, but what the fuck does it mean by that? Perhaps you can just give a few examples that would help educate people.
Well, for example, like certain certain heroes rely on certain heroes back then relied on like getting solo pickoffs or blinking into the fight or using their abilities to gap close the fight and uh, set up for their team. But the problem with the counter that I had was we'd have Titan Hunter Ravage. It would just completely disjoint everything that they had coming at us, and we could focus down the hero that just like dove in into our 5 man, and then we had Chen heals and mechs, and we were one of the only teams that were building mech and pipe together.
Hmm.
And when you have mech and pipe together, basically, if the other team doesn't have a pipe as well, back then, they couldn't fight you. Same thing with mech. So we always abused this timing, and we also abused the fact that we had jungle heroes because we took advantage of the jungle when a lot of teams weren't thinking about it.
Hmm.
So our mech timings would come out really early on our supports, and we always knew that if we have a mech, if they run into us and they don't have a mech, we're just gonna beat them. And we knew that we were really confident taking the towers.
Hmm. And you spoke about the mech as well, and the item timings. I think we're now transitioning a bit already into the complexity gaming time. When you were playing under the call tag, and you found your style, the communication was going well. You were also showing a lot of success. I mean, I'm checking this right now on the wiki. Just like first and second places under the complexity tag. Um, Back then, if you had to point out like some problems that existed within the roster, what would you, looking back on it now, say were the problems, if there were any?
There was a lot of problems. It's
Okay.
Hannah was really quiet, and he had a very limited hero pool, and also lacked a lot of confidence to bring into new heroes into his roster.
Hmm.
And I always pushed him to say like, "Hey, I'm a badass, Zeus or something," and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, let's do it." But in the end, our hero pool got very limited in terms of his side. So we saw a lot of Beastmaster and a lot of Tide, and as a result, I think he got kind of bored of playing the same thing, so he wouldn't try as hard, or he would just kind of remain silent in the games. And I think he lost some motivation because of that. And then um, as far as Mike went, we knew he was individually weaker skilled, and his dedication made up for that. And also the fact that he never played support until that point, making the team, we decided it was best for everybody that he played support with me, and I just decided to teach him. So he relied a lot on me to give him instruction, and when things got chaotic or uh, there were moments where we needed to do our own things, we weren't able to do it. So it was really difficult in that respect. And then I think TC was always solid. I don't have complaints about TC. And Jo was far too reckless, really impulsive, and as far as communication went, he was really loud. Like he used to annoy the crap out of Mike. He used to sing like I don't know, like Taylor Swift, like just a
He's a
like Justin
Pinoy, man.
Bieber.
He's gonna
Yeah,
be loud and he's gonna
it's
be
really
doing
flamboyant
something. Yeah,
type of communication. It drove everyone insane, and over time we kind of had to dull that down. But yeah,
there's two things I do want to mention before I forget. The first thing would be, you talked about how Mike was extremely dedicated, but he lacked experience, perhaps a bit of skill as well, and you tried to just have a set role for him before he went into a game, and then you would make sure that he follows the plan that you have in mind. Is that kind of correct?
we always. I, I don't think we had so much of a plan for him the entire game. It
Mm-hmm.
was more like if I tell you to do something, you do it. If you don't know what to do, come to me. And I always wanted him to know like what I wanted him to do at all times. So he would have to ask me, or I would see him just doing nothing. So I'd be like, hey, go over here, do this, do that, and it was constantly telling him what to do all the time back then.
Okay, and then at some point, and then did I understand you correctly that when you said when things get hectic in a big fight, for example, then you would have wished that he would perhaps have more of of his own understanding and being able to eliminate the communication delay by making his own correct decisions, or
It was mainly it's mainly like when we're behind, um, I have to get really creative as a leader to tell the team how we're going to come back. Like back then, we were really famous for Complexity Smoke Gangs, which is the
yes.
wraparound. That was one of the things that I thought about. And when we're behind and I have to think of how we're going to bait them into something or how we're going to get the flank, a lot of times there's certain work left undone, like where the wards are going or if there's any openings on the map. And that was the main issue.
Oh, in regards to Mike, now you said.
Yeah.
All right, and the second thing that I didn't want to forget was what would you say, looking back at the whole thing, about yourself back then in complexity gaming? If you had to criticize yourself in one or more aspects, what do you think were your uh, mistakes, I guess?
Gosh, there's so many. I think the top mistakes I had were not. I think I was too strategy oriented. So a lot of times I would. Back then I had the belief that if you had a strategy and the other team didn't have a strategy, the person with the strategy should win.
Uh-huh.
Because I felt like we are just more prepared and we knew what we were doing. Everyone's on the same page. But over time, I realized that strategies are more of a result of what you can bait your opponent into, or like say for example, somebody uh, picks like a wisp or something. You want to the strategy would be thinking of heroes that are going to play well against the wisp playstyle, not running something that you think, regardless of what they're doing, into them.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked for a lot of time, but um, I realized that I couldn't do that anymore. And the other stuff was I was really arrogant and hard-headed back then. Like, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was really stressful to be the dictator back then.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, I'm pretty introverted and a bit shy. So going into Dota 2, having to be a leader was a new thing for me. And I realized in order to find my voice, I needed to get kind of riled up or angry.
Uh-huh.
And that gave me the confidence and the ability to raise my voice at people and tell them what to do without taking any flack for it, or not flack, but without taking without getting too anxious about it. I had to really just ignore everything, and because of that, I kind of shut out a lot of people.
So I can imagine now that me as an outsider listening to this, that perhaps there must have been situations where perhaps let's just a dumb example, you're confident in a certain situation to do something in particular, and you make the call for your team to
Yeah,
go for it, and in the end, it turns out it was perhaps not the best call to make, and perhaps then like how would you react if like Jo or the rest would be like, all right, we did this, it didn't work out, I think that was a bad call. Like did a lot of discussions and fights result from these types of situations?
I think less so the calls in game. It was more of the belief in the strategy. So when I would pick something that I really believed in, and somebody was saying like, "This isn't working. We need to, like, we lost this game because of this," and I would have to say, I would have to stand up for myself and say, "No, I really think that we made certain mistakes here and there, like," and I tried to point them out, and I'd be like, "I really think we should keep going with this because I believe in this and I don't want to throw it away," and I would have to kind of fight for my strategy, even though people were kind of doubting it until I saw like for myself it didn't work out. So in a lot of ways, I was kind of willing to do the same thing over and over and over again, even if it might not have been winning. which is like the definition of insanity. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, back then it was just like I had to believe in myself because I knew that if I didn't, then people wouldn't be willing to rally behind me, and I had to just be the as strong as I could, even
So
if I
so
didn't
was
feel
like the
strong.
philosophy to say, as long as all five do perhaps like the second or third best thing, it might still be better than trying to do something else half-assed, or let's all try to be stay on the same page and get the biggest result out of it, and then in the end you kind of realize that overall perhaps you need to switch up your strategy or your understanding of the game.
Yeah, just yeah, pretty much. I don't know.
And is this still the complexity time, or are we already like transitioning into liquid? Like where on the
It's
time frame with
complexity.
this? All right, this would still be complexity. And when when you guys switched over to liquid, did you like this? I'll call it the like the baggage. This whole baggage, did it all carry over into Team Liquid and kind of corrupt communication within the team there, that you've already kind of had situations where you said, all right, I think this should work out in the end, and others on your team perhaps disagree with it. Like what I'm trying to get at here, perhaps that will make it easier for you to respond, is I'm trying to identify like where did it start when it comes to just like deeply rooted um, parts where you're not in sync, you know?
Right. I think I get it. So yeah, I was really inexperienced back then, so I thought like every team I join is gonna be this amazing, and now we're just getting way better players. So like I thought, it's just only getting better. And in the beginning, well, there's a backstory to this, which is after the end of TI2 and Complexity, I wanted to take a break. It was everybody knew, like I said, this year was so exhausting for me. I worked all day, every night, eat, sleep, and breathe Dota pretty much. Like I would sleep to watching VODs on my iPhone or think about in the shower, like pretty much 24/7. And it was really, really soul crushing at the end of the event, losing when I knew that we could have gone farther. So I basically said, yeah, we're gonna take a break. I need at least 2 months, and then we can play again, guys. And during that time, Jo left the team because EG decided to pick him up, and he thought that was a better option for him. And because I knew, like as a player, he had admired a lot of those people like Demon and Milk.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand where he's coming from, bigger and better things. And that pushed me back even further because I was like, oh wow, I thought we were like, I thought we were a family.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I didn't know that many other players to replace him, so that was kind of a big loss for me. And then, what the opportunity that came was Bulba messaged me and he said, "Hey, we have an idea for a new team with Team Liquid, and they're interested in your core of players." And I said, "Huh, well, I'm taking a break right now, but kind of curious what's going on with that." And he said, "Well, it's gonna be me and Korok." And back then I was like, "Wow, Korok! Korok is amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's that Morphling player that just destroys everyone. He has so much experience, and he's probably one of the best players in NA Dota, hands down." So I was really excited to play with him, and because of that, I got really blindsided, and I kind of hastily joined the team without actually playing with either Bobo or Croc previously. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know them at all. And I said to myself, yeah, this opportunity is gonna pass me by if I don't take it. Even though I don't feel like taking it, I think this roster looks like something that could do work.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like we can win TI with this. It's like, okay, sure, let's do this. And I was feeling kind of still down, but yeah, we started the team and we went to practice immediately, started playing tournaments immediately. And what soon came to uh, pass was I started picking, but I wasn't really motivated. We had a poor showing as our inception to Team Liquid for the first month or two, with all that hype behind us. There's a lot of outside pressure as well from the fans,
Yeah.
and basically I was like, wow, I'm not ready to do this. Like I didn't get enough time, and then because of that, I was picking like really bad drafts. I wasn't thinking as much as I was before, and then like immediately the people who didn't know me, I feel like they lost confidence right there, like Korok and Boba.
Hmm.
And when somebody loses confidence in you that early, especially as an initial impression, I think that takes a big like toll on your team chemistry.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, back then, I was like, okay, well, sure, I'm gonna try to, I'm just gonna give TC some drafting time because he knows what he's doing. He's gonna be consistent for me. He's gonna get us by while I'm getting through this. But what happened was we have matches.
Hmm.
Can't do anything, can't relax. Uh, it first started out as TC's drafting for one game, and then it turned into TC's drafting for 1 week, or 2 weeks, and then over time it just became TC drafting, and I was like, okay, I think I can do this now. I think so. And I come in there and I started doing this thing where I'm trying to make strategies. I'm trying to do the thing I did with complexity. I'm doing strategies. We're picking them, we're playing them, and it works out for a bit. We start winning, but it also doesn't work out for a bit, and we start losing. And during that time, uh, I think this will answer your question. Is like people really disagreed that weren't from our core. They really disagreed with the idea that we're just picking strategies and not adapting to people, and it was too rigid of a plan. And because of that, then that's truly when the conflict started to happen because I just couldn't deal with it. I can't. Somebody who played with the teams with like full trust to a team where I had to like build that trust up again, and which is so hard to do and so rare. I think it's like I just couldn't do it anymore, and and then that's where it just like kind of collapsed.
One thing that comes to mind when you talk about this, it's interesting to I didn't even know, and maybe I'm just badly prepared, but I wasn't aware of the fact that you didn't really know or play with Boba or Korok before, and that you were very excited about the fact that Korok will be part of Team Liquid.
Yeah,
Um,
as well as Boba. Yeah.
mhm. I mean, I've talked to Boba on a few occasions, and he's definitely a very communicative guy and has a very good heart. Um, what I ask myself is, if you had a time where you had issues with just the whole package, thinking this is too much, I need a break, and I know I can do it, but right now I just need some time off, but I still need your guys' trust in me. Were there any occasions where you guys would just hang out in Skype or TeamSpeak where you would just talk about these things that go on inside of yourself, saying, all right, guys, I feel kind of fucked up right now, but I feel like I need your trust, and I feel like that I can do it, but I just need some time. Like, uh, did you guys ever
No,
have these kind of conversations?
not really. A lot of what it came down to was just like me kind of sulking around the day after practice. We would leave after practice. No one kind of hung around or anything, and I didn't feel that close because back then Hannah was my best friend at the time. So like we always consoled on each other, and
Hmm.
because I left him, he got angry with me, and we didn't talk for a long time. So I kind of lost the person that was closest to me,
Hmm.
and also Jo was a big supporter of me as well. He always tried to pump me up and help motivate me, and Mike and TC were more of the quiet type. So not knowing Boba and not knowing Korok too much, we didn't really have this discussion. And what it came down to was just me at night being like, "Oh man, just sitting in the shower all day. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I need to snap out of this. I just need to step up. I need to, grow some balls. Just do this because I can do it." And it was just like this cyclical cycle where we just didn't really address it, and uh, kind of TC being the drafter was helping me bide my time. That was
Hmm.
my strategy. So yeah.
Do you think I have questions to you about if you think, looking back, one of those two things was a mistake. One is, as a leader, not stepping up and saying, all right, I have two quiet guys here, and now we got Hotshot Korok, and we got Boba here, also extremely skilled and experienced player, and I am the leader of the old squad, and I want to take this position for this squad here as well. So we gotta, communicate about what's going on. Like the first thing question would be, do you feel like it was a mistake for you to sulk too much and not look for the discussion and the communication and then communicate what's going on with you right now to make it easier for people like Korok and Boba to kind of keep that trust in you?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure if I brought it up or not. I think I did. I'm sure I mentioned it, but not really to the extent that it was leading.
And
And
then,
like
oh, sorry, go
it
ahead.
was a lot of it was just like the inexperience. Like I've only had one team and it worked a certain way and now it's not working a certain way. So, you know, I always powered through it back then and I thought I could do it again. And then there was like this pressure from the fans because it was a really hype team. So uh, there wasn't really any time for us to stop and think. So I think it was a mistake, but I think looking back on it, knowing that what the circumstances were and how inexperienced I was, that I don't think I could have came to that conclusion by myself.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good way to look at it, and I completely agree. I mean, looking back, given the circumstances and all the hype that was behind it, and all the, you've been in the public eye the whole time, and you were still, pretty young. Um, I don't, I agree that in the sense that you shouldn't give yourself a hard time about not uh, realizing that perhaps you need to, make space, make time, get the players together and talk to them about what's really going on. Try to just talk through all the things that are going on in the hopes that perhaps that might improve the situation. But I mean that's just one interesting point that
Yeah.
I thought about. Um,
I mean, we had various team meetings. Like I used to call a meeting 1 hour a week,
uh-huh.
uh, with all of us together, like discussing like what's going on, like what I want to do and stuff like that. But like, uh, I think it seemed kind of redundant to some of the players, and eventually like people started caring a little bit less.
Mhm.
So those meetings kind of deteriorated over time.
All right. And the second thing would be, do you feel like it was a right or wrong choice to even pass the baton to TC?
I think at the time it was the right choice because what happened with me was either we were winning a lot or we're losing a lot, and there was no in between. And what TC did was he was just so consistent. I mean, if we lost, it would be like because we weren't playing well, or it was like some late game thing. We never lost in the earlier mid game, but with my drafts, like we could lose in the laning phase and just completely get destroyed. And when we lose like that, I think the players get really frustrated. So I thought it was better for the team that I wasn't drafting. And back then, I started to realize I wrote a couple of blogs. Like I started to realize that the game after watching TC draft was not about having a strategy the entire time, not being able to, not having to pick like five certain heroes or something like that. It was more about just being consistent and playing well. And and from that team, I felt like we had enough skill that we could compete with on a base level with other teams compared to Team Fire, where I felt our skill level was lower. So I had to do that. So yeah, passing it to TC, I was like, well, if we're kind of able to win every game now, and we have enough skill to actually do that, I don't see why it wouldn't be okay. And that's kind of just where it took off, and it just everything seemed fine. And for the first time in a year and a half, I started to realize like, or I started to feel a lot less pressure and stop being so stressed out, and it was really relaxing. And I think that feeling might have been kind of addicting to be able to relax. Because you know, like when you draft every day, like we woke up 8 a.m. every day, played till like 2 or 3 every p.m. and like as the drafter, you don't get to like get up and eat food or go anywhere. And basically, I wouldn't eat for like half the day, and I would get so exhausted. But then when TC started drafting, I was like, well, oh nice, I can make a sandwich. Like I feel good. I can like take a shower and stuff like that, and I just felt so much more relaxed, and we were doing fine. So I was thinking, yeah, this could be the way things are.
So do you? That almost sounds like like I'm talking to someone that would say or come to the realization that perhaps um, captaining and drafting and making all the in-game calls and having all that stress is perhaps not that person's natural spot.
Well, I think that the lesson that I learned is that you just can't do it by yourself. Like every great team is a collection of people and anything. Um, Even people who kind of shine the brightest in the world, like entrepreneurs, they always have a backing. They have a support system, and I didn't have a support system. So I think the lesson that I learned is that to learn to rely on your teammates and ask for their advice and help and come together. And um, it was looking that way. Like with TC, and I really enjoyed that. I wrote about like how I felt like now the better way to go about things is to have everyone help you. Help, like the leader isn't someone just doing it all by themselves. And I don't know, it felt way healthier.
And with TC as a captain, did he feel like what were his emotions about having that new role? Was it for him something like in the sense that I'm finally able to do what I've always thought was the correct thing to do, or how did he go about the new spot that he had with a lot more responsibility and making more calls and doing the draft?
Well, let me clarify. It's like uh, I guess the word captain is like synonymous with in-game calls and drafting, but it was very much so a partnership between him and I. And he didn't. You can't just change someone's personality to make them in-game do in-game calls. So TC wasn't doing in-game calls. It was always me doing in-game calls the entire time. It was more of TC having the final decision on picks, so they're more like consistent. And I would pitch ideas to him, and we would bounce off each other. It was just his final say on the draft mainly. He was the drafter, not the captain. It was still I still considered myself the captain back then. Um, so it wasn't really like that.
Okay, understood. Did the and when you made the in-game calls, was it the fraction Boba slash Korok that were mostly criticizing calls, or was it even happening often, or just like did you have to discuss and explain your calls on regular basis, like to
You
your team?
know, I the in Dota, like at least for me as a support player, I feel like my calls are uh really based around the early game. Everybody has their place to make calls. Like carries have the late game, and like mids have mid game and stuff like that. It was everybody was making calls overall, but as a leader, the most important thing for you to say and do in the game, it revolves around like what objectives to take, when to stop pursuing them, and being able to identify if somebody's call doesn't work out. So everybody was making calls, but it was my decision to go for advantages or not. And generally, people could agree with it because we discussed it among each other. Like it's like, oh, uh, are we gonna go for the Roshan? Are we not gonna go for the Roshan? Are we gonna push this tower? Are we gonna back? They're coming, and I'm like, back, back. It's
Hmm.
like that. It's more of that. The in-game leader's not gonna tell everybody exactly what to do. That's not really the job.
Hmm. And now looking at the Team Liquid roster and the way things developed, it's I want to start slowly getting into the part like the recent events. Like you've recently been removed from Team Liquid,
Yeah.
and perhaps I've thought about this for a while, but to be honest, I've not found a way to best ask about the whole thing. Um,
You want me to explain it?
that would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, there's no bad blood between me and the organization or even the players. I still wish them the best of luck, and I really like all of them and the organization as well. It's like basically what it boils down to was I messed up. It's like I kind of undermined the entire team and the organization, like by kind of being really impulsive. And for my CEO, Nazgul that everything that I said mainly was like against what he believes in his values. So kind of his initial reaction, I feel, was that I should be kicked immediately. And I can't really fault him for that because, like, of course, it's just not something that you do. It's not something an employee does. And, you know, I totally understand that because, I messed up. And what kind of transpired was that even though I was supposed to be removed immediately, probably, um, my team and supporters kind of fought for me to have the right to prove myself. It was only fair, at least.
Mhm.
Uh, with all this thing said, so I was given a short amount of time, knowing that at any period during that time, if I was evaluated incorrectly or something like that, or not incorrectly as a negative, any negative evaluations, then uh, you know, I'm subject to dismissal. So I knew that the entire time.
Mhm.
And yeah, basically what it came down to was the tension was escalating, the pressure was escalating, not only on our team, but also on Team Liquid. Like you can imagine what kind of flack every staff member would get, especially our CEO. So there's a lot of pressure on them. And although we did well sometimes, like we played Cloud9 and we had a good showing for one of our first matches. It didn't really play out as well as I would have hoped. So the results, even though like there's an argument for like saying there's not enough time or uh, maybe it wasn't even my fault.
Mhm.
Like the fact of the matter is there's like so much pressure on everybody, and um, I had to pretty much be dismissed by the organization just in terms of like keeping their integrity, like because it just looks really stupid for them to allow me to do something like that and get away with it, especially if we're not doing well. So yeah, and I think it was mainly a decision made by the organization, and I understand that, and I think everybody should understand that as well. Because like I don't think there was much bad blood in our like in our team. Like, people still wanted to continue. I said like I don't know. I think that I took it pretty far. Like the reason why I wanted to be the captain was like just for change. I wanted to see change. Like, that was basically it. I was really tired of every day was really apathetic and for everybody, and it was really sad. It was really soul crushing, and like I never wanted to ask for the draft. I mean, that was second to my plan. My main plan was to introduce certain ideas and values into the team and be able to make the final decision on what we're doing. So, for example, some things that I would do is uh, I started looking for different people that can help me. We had spreadsheets set up for statistics on our scrims and our matches for our best heroes, and uh, we looked really closely at statistics of current heroes and try to look for trends. So like heroes like Rasta, for example, we noticed they had a really insane, pretty much overpowered win rate on the Dire, like 60 to 70%, which
Mhm.
in competitive is insane. So we started adapting to that. And other things we did was we had people coming in and helping us like figure out how to practice diligently. We learned that 4.5 hours of practice on a single task is the max we should go, and learning how to take breaks and not pushing ourselves so hard, and like practicing things in specific that we really didn't do before. Because the way that we scrimmed was like we wake up at 8, we wake up at 9, we play, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours, 7 hours, no breaks, and sometimes we would have matches in between. And we also, when we played like what we would play in a tournament. We weren't playing to learn. We weren't playing to improve. We played the lineups that we would pick, and we were doing well. But teams figured us out, and because we hadn't practiced like what we wanted to improve on or what we wanted to be better like suited against, like for example, right now in the meta, Naga Siren and Lycan, Ember, and Invoker are really popular.
Hmm.
The way that I wanted to go about it was like let them have a hero. Sure, we lose. Sure, we can lose the game, but we can try different things and we can learn, or we can pick the heroes ourselves and let the other team, counter us, so we can learn from all of this stuff. It doesn't matter if we win or lose, as long as we get our goal. And I felt like we really needed that because we never had seen that before, and if we did that, it was kind of by accident. And we also I also suggested certain things like maybe TC should play support because I feel he has a really strong game understanding, but in his position, he often feels frustrated that he can't make the actions he's at the carry. And after the last TI with the first Liquid, TC even wanted to play support. And one of the problems was like me and Way 2 didn't like synergize very well together as a combo. And our excuse was that it's okay, but it really wasn't. And I wanted to work with TC because I knew that we would work well together. But we ended up not pursuing that option, and they actually did that when I left because that was one of the things that we were working on right before I finished. I got kicked. We actually decided to have TC play support the night before I got kicked the next day, so we never got to actually try it. And the other thing was there were certain role issues that I've noticed since the beginning. Like when we were in MLG DreamHack, these tournaments,
Hmm.
November, December, uh, we were losing, and I was constantly trying to push this idea, like, Sam he's a player who likes to gank, he likes to make pressure, and Koikva's a hero who likes he's a player that likes to farm. It's more of a core role. I think we should switch these players. Like, we should switch their roles seriously. And because I didn't really have the power to enforce that, and I could only pitch my ideas and argue really fervently for it, like we never really got it through. And now you see that they switched these roles, and they switched it permanently. When I took over, I was like, we'll do it sometimes. We'll have this versatility so we can keep it, because people were kind of hesitant about making the move. But like now I see that they've permanently switched, and I just see like how much better it is for them. And I'm proud that they can make that decision. But I'm just kind of disheartened by the fact that it didn't happen sooner, and that's sort of the reason why uh, things blew up the way they did. Because the whole year I was always arguing for certain things to happen because like I knew it should in my heart, and it just didn't happen. So I don't know. It was really a bad thing, and I couldn't take it. So I was like, you know what, like I don't want to go to TI if I can't win, and I don't feel like we can right now with what's going on. Something has to happen, whether it's me throwing away all my dreams like of going, or and or we succeed together like we should. And I was at that point I was willing to just accept whatever happened because yeah, it's like the same reason why LGD switched their roster last year. Like, yeah, we're just gonna play in the qualifiers because if we can't win the qualifiers, we don't deserve to be at the event. That's kind of how I feel. It's like
Hmm.
I don't feel like I deserve to be there, and I want to work for it. So uh, I think this is something that can help kick us into gear. Like put the pressure on, put the have the wolves chasing us, running for our lives. Like that's what I wanted, and it started, but it ended kind of soon, unfortunately. Yeah.
So it was. Mm, was this the kind of emotional background that existed at the point in time when you wrote that when you wrote the Crash and Burn blog entry?
Yeah, I definitely. What happened was like it's just one of the normal days. Like I'm always thinking like, why can't we win? Like we have really great players. It just makes no sense at all. Just that's my thought every single night. What's going on?
Hmm.
And uh, it just so happened like it got triggered in me because I had a conversation with Blitz. Like I'm not blaming Blitz. It could have been anybody really at that point. Uh, but I really thought he was helping support me, and I was kind of secretive about like that I was making a blog, and it mainly started out as me like trying to vent a little bit because I was feeling really like both inspired but also heartbroken. So it was like tearing at me, and then like halfway through, I was just like, I wonder what would happen if I just put it out there. Like if I, I don't know. I just thought like when I was being really impulsive, so I was just thinking like, well, I'm just gonna let it happen and see what goes on because like I really felt that I had nothing to lose whatsoever. Like I just I nothing I want more than to be successful with my team. That's it. Like that's the bottom line. But yeah, and at that time it was a mistake, obviously. It's definitely a mistake because at that time I only considered myself, really. I mean, I considered the team like in that we want to be successful and I thought I could help us do that, but um I didn't consider like all the people involved, like how it hurts everybody and their reputation and also their chances. Like say I did that and I got kicked, like then what? The four other players that I've been playing with for the entire year, their chances of making the international is like ruined because of me. Like I didn't consider anything. I just for me it was like we're gonna we're gonna do this. Like I never thought that we could fail. I just said this is what we need. We're gonna go hard. We're burning the boats. We're just going forward. There's no turning back. That was my belief. So in my mind, I never had a doubt that there would be change and that we would improve. Uh, and oh, the other thing I wanted to get to was like, yeah, I didn't want to be the drafter or say like I'm magically gonna be able to like make these big calls for you guys. It was just it's kind of like I said, it's synonymous with the role of being a captain and it's expected.
Uh-huh.
And because of that pressure, it was basically this. It was you're drafting, you're making the calls, you're making this team succeed. If you don't do that, then you're gone. That's it. That's the mentality. And uh, there was a time when I said, "Hey guys, like I did a recording. I called my girlfriend that night, and the night I was feeling this, and I recorded the conversation we had so I could use it as an apology, to kind of communicate everything I was feeling to my team. And it kind of went like this. It was like, I think, I don't think that I'm meant to be the drafter on this team. I know that in my heart. And like, I didn't, I'm not trying to be, like the Hitler of this team or anything. I want us to have the same dynamic. I just want to see change. And the reason why I can't go back on this is because if I do, I'm gonna be kicked. I'm gonna, if I say I'm not drafting, I'm done. And uh, we wanted to. I ended up telling my team about that. It was obviously like a lot more detailed, but that's the bottom line about that. And they supported the idea, and we kind of had a we kind of had an idea like maybe we can work together and just say that you're doing it, you're doing the drafts, because in that way we'd be fine, right? Like, peop nobody would be upset. It'd still be continuing the same way it was. And yeah, we'll do the things that you want to do, but we'll do it together. And I was at that point, I felt really relieved and happy. Like I had the support of my team. And yeah, unfortunately, I got removed after that point, like the next day.
That was
So
one day after.
yeah, like, in the morning, I had no idea.
Huh.
So I mean, I knew from the beginning it could have happened. So I was mentally prepared for it. Yeah.
That's that's dramatic, man. But like in the real sense of the word. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very certain that people listening to this, there wouldn't be a doubt in anyone's mind that it must have been an extremely stressful uh, period of time for you, and that it must have been just a lot of weight that you felt on your shoulders, and that obviously that when Nazgul took the decision to remove you from the team, that there was a part of you that was mature enough to say, all right, I can see it from the distance, I can agree with the fact that the organization had to take this step, but what the fuck, there's like all these other variables that can also be highlighted as a potential source of the current state that we're in, and why don't we work on this or work on that, and why are the roles switched after I am kicked, even though that has been one thing that I've been harping on for a very long time. Um, how's it right now with you? Like, have you had? I mean, that's a lot of stuff, man. Have you coped with it? Like, how are you feeling about it right now?
I, I definitely coped with it. I coped with it before it happened,
Hmm.
so I knew I had to accept it at some point. Um, as far as like people like trying to assault me or like bring me down on forums and whatever, I don't pay attention to it. I've been through this. I've been a programmer for 3 years. It's happened since I was in Team Fire. That there's negative feedback all the time. Like I don't care. I mean, I just want to say like I don't like I don't know what kind of person like wants to bring somebody else down like that. But I mean, it doesn't affect me. So just keep trying. And the one thing that does affect me though is like every time I do something that I believe in, like I pay attention to the people that reach out to me. Like I'm not reading the forums or whatever. But like there have been like pro players telling me like, giving me saying how it's affected them and how they think now, and to trying to support me, saying like, you know, different kind things and saying how they can relate as well. And also people were telling me how they can relate in a variety of different fields. I've had people who work at successful businesses or are entrepreneurs and stuff like this in the office environment who say how there's so many parallels between it, and they give me advice like different things and resources I can reach out to, books, videos, all this different stuff, their experience, telling me like what kind of mistakes I was making so I could reevaluate myself, and all very respectfully. And I appreciate those kind of people. I read those things, and that's the reason why I can handle this because I know at the end of the day, um, I did something stupid, but I did something courageous, I feel, and I think just if I had an impact on like one person, like it's enough for me, and it's been far more than that, so I can handle it.
I agree, man. That's the truth, and I think that's a very very good way to look at these things. And I feel like that's a great closing point for the whole ordeal that's been going on around yourself and Team Liquid as well. And I do want to say that I think that you're a great person and a great character, and I thank you very much for being so open with me and giving me all of this information and sharing it with me, and also with all the people that now have the chance to get the whole picture from your point of view.
Yeah.
Um, all right, before we wrap this up, this is not the end though, because you have reconnect with Ike's Mike, and obviously you are now on a new roster with a bunch of players that you probably have to influence still, and maybe mold a bit more. I do wanna distance myself a bit now from the past, and look toward the future. You're now on a roster with Fluff and Stuff. Mike, Ash, I think is
Yep.
that correct? SNA, or is it
Hmm.
Sna? How do you pronounce it? Do you know it?
We say Sna.
Sna and Whitebeard. Let's talk about your current team. Can you just say a few words, like how are you practicing? What's the dynamic, and what kind of uh, leadership are you taking within that squad?
We pretty much play every day. The dynamic's a lot more friendly. Everyone is a friend. Like everyone likes to play with each other. Really communicative, and it's just a lot more easygoing. but there's also the drive and motivation to improve. This team is a lot more inexperienced. They are new players. We have I think we have an 18-year-old and we also have a 19-year-old,
Hmm.
something like that. So they're pretty young players. They get really excited about everything. Like it's like, oh, we have 500 viewers. Wow, like I'm so nervous, stuff like that. And I kind of have to ground them in my experience. Um, and it started that Mike was the captain of this team, and I didn't. I used to like coach teams, and I kind of help these guys out as well in my spare time throughout the year. And I've gotten to know all their players, and it kind of happened naturally. Like, I wasn't sure if I was gonna play, or I was gonna play for some like European team, or like I wouldn't really consider going to Korea, and or if I would play in the international, or if I would just give up.
Do the blitz.
Yeah, dude, sure, but but yeah, I wasn't really sure. It kind of just happened naturally because one of their players had taken a job opportunity and he wasn't able to compete. So I was like, well, I have a lot of free time. I'm kind of bored. Let's see this. Maybe we can even go to the qualifiers because you know what? Like, if it's an American qualifier, like, I think at least we have a chance. And I think you guys are actually good enough, surprisingly. So it was kind of me adding on to their team, and Mike was doing the drafts and he was doing the calls and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, you guys are doing fine without me. So let's just see what happens. And uh, we played some games, and I was kind of just like doing my own thing and playing my game, and it was fine. And then I realized over time that they were inexperienced. I had the experience. It's a shame that I don't give them advice
Hmm.
and help them out. So these days I have a pretty major influence over all aspects of decision making, uh, drafts and game calls. It's pretty much like what it's pretty much uh, me and Mike bouncing off each other, and yeah, I have a really massive influence on the team, and but one of the reasons why, like, if people have seen the reason why Mike's like doing the draft stills in the blue seat is because uh, when I came to the team, I noticed such a big difference between this mic and the mic of Team Liquid. It's like night and day. Um, Mike on Team Liquid was always being kind of suppressed and blamed for certain things, and I think he lost a lot of motivation. He always had great ideas, but no one was willing to listen to him except for me. And yeah, in that way, he just got completely shut down. And then on this team, I noticed that he was putting so much more effort into thinking outside of the game, like of what he can do, what we can do, like drafting and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what, Mike? I don't want to take that away from you. I don't want to become the drafter and have you just go AFK and silent because I think like it's a really cool ability and it's a cool version of yourself that I'm seeing here, and I want to keep you in that position because it I don't need or want to be the person like doing the picks uh in their entirety. I want to be able to make a decision and have people understand why and believe in it, and I also want to support Mike in doing his thing. So yeah, pretty much we're working together. I would say it's a 70-30 right now. Like I would say I do 70% of like the calls and on what we're doing, but Mike definitely has a big influence. So that's just the way we're gonna run it right now.
Well, I'm very excited to see what the three new guys can bring to the table. But I'm looking forward to it very much, and I feel like you have a great opportunity here to kind of just put to action all the things that you've learned and kind of start from scratch almost, you know.
Yeah.
All right, this has been going on for a very long time. Let me ask one question that I like to ask in all IP chats, and that would be, do you still play pubs at all, or
Yep.
yeah?
I play pubs. I think it's really important to play
Okay.
pubs not only by yourself but also with your teammates. Practice is really important in pubs. Like not only like beyond mechanical skills, just building team synergy and keep maintaining the friendship and having fun.
To fuck up some enemies.
I mean, it's like we've had some role swaps, so we need people learning heroes, and I don't, as somebody who feels really like who values connection between people. I don't want to just be like, hey, your Slark is bad. Go play a pub by yourself. I'm gonna be like, hey, if you want to, I want you to play this hero for this certain reason because I think it's good. Um, let's just pub together. I'll come play with you. Like, I'm gonna help support you and growing, and that's just kind of the environment that I want to create
Hmm.
here.
When you guys do play the pubs, what's one thing that you see in pubs often or over and over again that pisses you off and you want to make a PSA about it?
It's like, well, I think our problems might be different, but like when you queue and you have a high MMR, you usually get people with low MMR, so like they're kind of non-factors, and they also like to pick really important roles. So your games become really difficult no matter like how hard I'm trying, like as a support, to like create the best possible circumstance for them to succeed. And I don't know, it's like I also I don't know. I just yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my main complaint about pubs.
So I mean like when like player Dragon Slayer 666 picks anti-mage and you make sure he gets all the fucking farm he wants, but then he
Yeah.
can't win the game.
And the other thing is like when you go, it's like you're like, oh, I'm gonna go mid, and you pick like some invoker, and then they pick Naga Siren because they watched our TZ stream, and then they're like, fuck you, get out my lane, and they won't leave. And then you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna go off lane, like whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna convince you, and and it's just like, oh, you just yeah, okay, everybody's RTZ now. I mean, sure.
But the thing is, your PSA is really root, like that's really close to the root of all problems in Dota 2, man. But that's like right at the core of the human psyche of people being dickheads and assholes and not realizing it, and and then you being like the bigger guy saying, okay, I'll support your fucking anti-mage, but then you lose because he's not skilled. That's a hard PSA to get through, my friend.
You want to know something that's pretty related to this? It's
Hell
like
yeah.
I played a pub and I picked Naga and I had a Smurf name and I called mid and then this like other pub picked Invoker, which is actually the opposite scenario. And I was like, hey dude, I called mid. And he's like, what? You're Naga? And I was like, yeah, haven't you seen Naga mid before? And then my friend who was in my party was like, that's RTZ. And he's like, what? And then he like went to a different lane. He just left the lane.
So
Like he didn't argue anymore.
did you win the game?
No, he left because he was an Invoker off lane. It was a he left. He
Oh, he left the
AFK'd.
game.
No, he AFK'd and I gave him an
Oh,
abandon, but I couldn't control him, which I would normally do. Like I've won a lot of games just microing people,
oh.
but like this guy straight up just AFK'd. He got an abandon, then the other support left. We weren't even losing, and it's like we got mega creeped, but I had a six-slotted Naga. We held the game for 25 minutes at our base with a hero we couldn't control, and we almost won against mega creeps, and we just couldn't because we couldn't micro his hero. Like I just wish, you know what? If you want to leave a game and you're gonna get abandoned anyway, just fucking leave because I want to control your hero, and it's really easy to win the game because I can do it, and you just man, why don't they just get kicked when they abandon?
I don't
And
know.
AFK?
I asked myself that as well. But there you have it, guys. If you queue with Fluff and he calls mid, then don't just fucking go. Or if you want to piss him off, you just go AFK. But that would ruin his chances of winning the game, I guess. Uh,
And just say you're RTZ too.
I wish I could. I mean, the last Epichats have been. They've. It's been a while since I made them, so I can't remember the PSAs of the others. But this is definitely a very close to the root of all problems, man. And I don't know if we'll ever have a solution to that. People
Nope.
being idiots. Oh, dude. All right. This has been going on for quite a while. I've enjoyed it a lot, my friend. Thank you very much for coming on and taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and no problem. I really wanted to do this, just even if there's a lot of consequences for it. I mean, you already seen what I did, and I liked your casting before like anyone knew you, so I I just liked you as a person, so I thought I might as well come onto the show. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And yeah, I hope to see more of you in the future, and I'm just gonna get this thing prepped and uploaded. For all you guys listening right now, if you're interested in all the past Epichats, it's just the format. I feel like that's gonna become perhaps a bit more demanded in the future as the sport grows and people evolve a bigger interest in the players' personalities and kind of the dynamics within a team. This has always been an interest of mine, and I feel like perhaps when I started the whole thing, there wasn't that many people interested in it because it's long-winded and stuff, but I feel like the information is extremely valuable. So if you are interested in more of this kind of content, then go to epicommentary.com. I've done Epichats with Bulldog, No Tail, Kuroki, Eternal Envy, and some others, and I feel like it's if you're interested in Dota and you like it, you're passionate about it, and you want to learn more, then I feel like this could be something very interesting for you. So obviously this couldn't happen without people coming on. Fluff, you're one of those guys. You've been through a very rough patch, and I admire the way that you've handled the whole thing, and I wish you all the best in the future, and thank you very much for coming on, man.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
So that was Fluff. Just for the very end, guys, as I said, it's been a while since I've done the Epichats. I hope that I was able to kind of get to the gist of the whole thing with Fluff and tickle out some good questions. If it wasn't the best quality, then my apologies. I'm just kind of rusty, but I'll upload this. I hope you appreciate it. You can download it as an MP3 and then just listen to it. And yeah, it would be great if you could check out the other Epichats I did on my homepage, epicommentary.com, and if you could show your support, then just follow me on Twitter. That's at epidota2, and yeah, that's it. I'm out for now. Thank you very much for listening, and have a nice day. Bye bye.